Remember to breathe, cause it'll take your breath away when the engines cough and you blast off. Ignite the night with a firecracker flash. Remember to live, cause you're done.
Hello, I am AxelMC131 and welcome to the Kerbal Space Program. And I have put this off recording this for a long time because I wanted to get the full version of Bandicam, and now I do have the registered version, so there should be no watermark. I suppose I'll see that in post-production, and also I can record longer. Now this, I'm currently on the version 1.0.5, the latest version, which has all the new spaceplane parts and the modified Mark 1 plane cockpit and the new jet engines and so forth. And I played around with them in the sandbox, and they are really cool. But this version was actually gifted to me by a friend of mine called Lucas, so big shout out to him. And I want to thank him very much for gifting me this game. And I had an older version, but I couldn't update it for some reason, so I'm really happy that I now have this, and it's been an awful lot of fun so far. But I did do a little bit in career mode, but not a huge amount, not enough in the new contracts. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new world. Well, a new save, I suppose. You don't really call it a world. I've been playing too much Minecraft, so let's go and start new. And it's literally going to be a new start. It's going to be a career mode game, and we're going to go and use the Phoenix Aerospace flag. Yes, I made it myself. And we're going to change our difficulty option because I want to make missing crews do not respawn. So if they die, they die. I will allow quick loading and quick saving in case of bugs, and I will allow reverting in case of because I do simulations sometimes. And we'll set everything else as they are. And let's go ahead and start. So if you don't know what Kerbal Space Program is, it's basically a space and physics simulator where you have to manage a space program on a world, which is it's kind of it's not really a representation of Earth, but the planet's called Kerbin. This is Gene Kerman, who's head of mission control. There you go, flight director. And there's kind of tutorials built into the game, but this is the KSC, or Kerbal Space Center. And if I go to, this is the tracking station down here, let me just go there, and it'll take us to the, effectively the map. Thank you. And this is Kerbin, so it's not Earth, you can tell that by looking at it. And the KSC is, where's the KSC? I've forgotten. Here. On this little patch there. And that's Kerbin, and that's the Moon, and that's Minmus, and then we have a whole system here where places that we can explore, you know. But for the moment, we're going to go back to the KSC, and we have to build up our space program. Now, in career mode, you have a limited number of parts to start with. We can actually go to the R&D, the Research and Development Center here, and this is the stuff that we have at the moment. This is the tech tree, the research tree, and it's actually pretty intensive. Let me just drag that across. There we go. That's how big it is. But at the moment, we only have these parts. We have one command pod, a manned command pod. We have one little solid rocket booster, a stabilizing fin, a parachute, a strut, and a single science experiment, the Mystery Goo Containment Unit. And we can spend science, which we get from running experiments, like the Mystery Goo Containment Unit, and we can then gain science up here, which is a little atom symbol, to spend that science to upgrade to get new parts, and more parts and better parts, and so on, and push further and faster, and, you know, and so forth. We also have to manage money, and we have contracts to test parts and put stations in orbit and put satellites in specific orbits and go and do surveys on various locations. And we also have reputation, and I don't remember exactly what reputation affects yet, but I think it affects like how much money you get from some contracts. But it helps to have good reputation, which you get from completing contracts, and you actually lose reputation from killing Kerbals. I'm going to try very hard not to do that. So we're going to go to mission control. Here's Gene again. To you too. Right. So we have up to 2 contracts we can accept, so we're going to start off with these ones that we have. Launch our first vessel and gather scientific data from Kerbin. Now, the veteran players of Kerbal Space Program, of course, will know that this is very standard procedure for any game, which is accepting those 2 contracts and then going and building a little rocket. So here's the vehicle assembly building, where we build rockets. And I'll probably go through all the other buildings as we get to them. This isn't a tutorial series, by the way. I should probably point that out quickly. So don't be thinking that. That's Werner von Kerman, who just appeared. Obviously a parody of Dr. Werner von Braun, the German rocket scientist. But we are going to go and create a little rocket. So we're going to have our Mark 1 command pod. Here we go. And we're going to put our little solid rocket booster on the bottom there. And we're going to put mystery goo containment units on the side. We're going to put 2 of them. There we go. Toggle our symmetry with X. Okay, and we have a Mark 16 parachute. And we'll put some basic fins on for stability. There we go. And we also want to make sure that our staging is correct. The stage button is space, and usually that is the most pressed key early on. And all that does is activates things. So in this case, the first time we press it, it's going to activate this engine. You can see it highlights it. And the second time we press it, it's going to deploy that parachute. Obviously, we don't want them to deploy at the same time because things go wrong. Now, the other thing that we need to notice is the fact that this is literally a trash bin full of boom. I like that it is referred to as. And we don't really want the amount of power that it produces. So we're going to knock that solid fuel down so it's got a much lower amount of fuel, and we're going to put its thrust to about half. So that'll carry us a little bit up into the sky, but not a huge amount. Oh, we also have unused monopropellant. A lot of people, I think, don't bother with this, but I like to take the monopropellant out of my command pods when I remember, if they don't have reaction control. It's quite funny that you get reaction control systems, which are cold gas thrusters for maneuvering in space later on, but the command pod still has monopropellant in it by default, so I've just taken that out because it's actually extra mass. And it costs a little bit more, so you can actually see the funds down at the bottom left there. It's not a huge amount, it's like 12 funds worth of monopropellant, which is a slap in the face compared to what we have here. But, yeah, for maneuvering, otherwise we actually have gyroscopes inside the command pods, and you can also get SAS wheels, or reaction wheels. But for the moment we're going to put our crew in, so we should have Jebediah in. Yep, this is our crew at the moment. This is all the operatives that the space program has. We have Jeb and Valentina, the pilots, Bill is an engineer, and Bob's a scientist, and that actually affects their abilities in the game. So the pilots can do a thing called stability assist, which basically means that you can press T, and they will hold position. Scientists and engineers can't do that. However, engineers can repair broken parts, and scientists can restore one-use science experiments. So I'll show you that shortly, but we are going to set this up, so we're going to name this, because I like to name my early vessels, Pioneer 1. Yes, the pioneer of our space travel program thing. Yeah. That totally makes sense. But Jeb is on board, and we should be ready to launch. And it's going to put us on the launch pad here. Right. So there's the KSC over there, there's the ocean. We probably won't be turning over too much here, we're just going to sit here and do some science. So, we want to gather scientific data from Kerbin. So we are going to do some science experiments. Now first of all, we can actually get a crew report from this command pod, which is worth science. There we go. We can also observe the mystery goo. Thump. A little bit slow. And we can actually also do an EVA report, so we can get Jeb out on EVA, that's extravehicular activity, so you can do an EVA report. Now of course, because he's not on the ground, it says he's flying above Kerbin's shores, but that's fine. And we can actually collect the data from there. Now it does say that removing the experiment data will render the module inoperable, and that's something that is common among a couple of science experiments, and scientists can restore them so that they can be used again, but otherwise they can't. He can also take the crew report out, and then store it back in, and then board, and we've got 3 experiments on board. And the reason that you do that is that you can then use the crew report again. Normally you can't. You have to, like, cycle it out and back in again. I don't know if that makes sense, but it works. I don't know if it's an exploit or something that's been deliberately done, but it works. So, I'm going to press T to put SAS on down here. You can see that. And Jeb will now try and hold position. And we'll just go to our stats there. And get ready to launch by pressing space in 3, 2, 1. Very nominal launch. There we go. Just under 5 Gs of acceleration. And you can imagine what would happen if I'd left this at 100% throttle. I think we're probably not quite going to break Mark 1 before we run out of fuel. No, we are breaking. There's the atmospheric effects, and yeah, not quite breaking Mark 1. But now that we're in the air, we can get another mystery goo observation while flying at Kerbin. The goo jiggles and wobbles as the craft flies. And crew report. The shores look inviting and you watch the waves roll into the coast. Nice. 3.5 science and 7 science. Good amounts of science. Very nice. And you can see that we have our gyroscopes here to control me. I'm just tapping A and D left and right there. just to wiggle around a bit. Not really any purpose for that, just showing off. We'll wait for the speed to start going down, so we'll start descending again. We're still going up at the moment. Almost about to go down. And now we're going down, and now I'm going to deploy the parachute. And turn SAS off for the moment, just not to not waste electric charge, because running the gyroscopes does use electric charge. And I've only got a limited amount, as you can see. And now we proceed back down to the ground. And we can actually time warp this. We have our little time warp function on the left there, which is basically a physics warp while you're in atmosphere, which is just acceleration. So it's now running 4 times regular speed. And just cut it before the parachute opens. There we go. You know the parachute's going to open at about 1 kilometer up. They've been changed to. They used to be 500 meters, but by default now they fully deploy at 1,000 meters. And then we're drifting all the way down to the ground. And we're going to land just west of the launch pad there. There we go. And bonk. A very, very nominal flight for the first launch of this iteration of the Kerbal Space Program. We're going to recover the vessel and bathe in that sweet, sweet first science. Ah, yes. It is so lovely. Look at that. 25 science from all that. Now we have 32 science, and we can go and spend it all. We get money back, and we get experience for Jeb. Basic rocketry. We get a bigger solid fuel booster, liquid engine, and a liquid fuel tank. And they're going to be quite good later on, because the solid fuel boosters you can't throttle in flight. Once you light them up, they go until they run out of fuel. But liquid fuel engines you can throttle, and you can also turn them off and back on again, which is really nice. So you need them for other stuff. We're going to research this as well, Engineering 101, which gives us the Science Junior Materials Bay, as it's sometimes also known as, and it is worth. This is a science experiment. You get a lot of science from this. We also have a transmitter and a decoupler. Cool, and we've got 22 science left. Oh, what should we get? Do we want different liquid fuel engine, a bigger solid fuel booster, a bigger fuel tank, parachute, heat shield, radiator panel, bigger fin, aerodynamics, or decoupler? I think we're going to go with that. And then we're going to go and do some more science. So let's actually go and check out our contracts. So now that we've launched vessels, we're going to have a whole lot more contracts. Do we have any tests for things at the launch pad? Yes, we do. We have test TR-18A stack decoupler at the launch site. These are always nice. I'm going to get that. And yes, I think we'll just do that for the moment, because a lot of the other ones are going to require more specific parts. But all we do for a part test is basically put the part on a vehicle, put it on the launch pad, and then stage, you know. So we can actually take this off for the moment, put that on. That's the TR-18A stack decoupler. We're going to put it around the other side so that we don't have to recover 2 vehicles. And we're going to go and launch that. In fact, what I should have done is put this materials bay on here so that we could get science from the launch pad. Ah well, coulda, shoulda, woulda. So we're just going to go here, test TR-18A stack decoupler, Kerbal, and launch site, and stage. Oh, that was a lot of vibration. Hey, now we have more experiments, and we also have gather scientific data from Kerbal, launch first vessel, and the milestones. Very nice. Broken altitude record of 2 kilometers, speed record of 250 meters per second, recovered first crew, performed first 2 experiments, and so forth, and so on and so forth. Right. Let's, we can actually see that some of these experiments we can do again. So the mystery goo from the launch pad, we don't get as much science, but it's still good to do. Things like the crew report and things, once you've done them once, they're not worth any science again, so we're just going to get that little extra 0.7 science and recover the vessel. Very nice. So we have 6.3 science, and our next goal is going to be going higher and getting higher altitude science. Although I think before we do that, we might get some, I don't know, should we get low altitude science? Or should we get some high altitude science? Let's go high altitude science, let's go higher. So we're going to create a new vessel here, so we're going to put on the new Science Junior here. There we go. And we should be okay, that should not explode when we hit the ground again, because the Science Junior is actually quite a delicate instrument. Crash tolerance of 6 meters per second. Not hugely quick in this game. So, we're going to put a stack decoupler here. And we're going to put some fuel tanks. We're going to make a liquid fuel rocket. Whoops. Alt. To replicate the part. I think I will do that just like that. We'll put the Reliant on. This is the first liquid fuel engine we get. It's about the same thrust as the second solid fuel booster, but it's much more efficient, and we can throttle it. So then we're going to put on another decoupler, and we're actually going to put on the little flea again, just to get us off the ground. That's all we want it for. And we're going to put these larger fins here. Actually, we'll do 4 of them, and the smaller fins up here, just to keep us stable. And we're going to make sure our staging is correct. So that fires, then that fires, and this we might actually want to throttle down. Even though that we can control the throttle manually, thrust limiting it means that we have more fine control. So that decouples and that fires, then that decouples, and then the parachute deploys. And we want to be safe, because I have killed crew before by deploying the parachute too early, and they just get destroyed by aerodynamic forces. So for this flight, we're actually going to put Bob on board. And Bob's we're going to want because he can do science, so we can actually get science from the launch pad. So this is the Pioneer 2, going higher and faster than ever before. I really hope that little flea can get this thing off the launch pad. I'm actually not sure. I've used similar rockets like this with the Hammer, the next solid fuel booster. But hopefully this will work with the flea. It is actually quite powerful for its size, considering it is just a trash bin full of boom. And I haven't thrust limited this one, so we're going to press... we T so we don't actually have any pilots aboard, so we can't do stability assist. But we're just going to have to control it manually there. So, first things first, we're going to get materials-based science. And I've just realised I didn't actually put any mystery gear on this. Oh well, we'll do that in a separate flight. We'll get... we've already got crew report and EVA report, but now what we can do is we can get Bob out of there. Just drop down a little bit. There we go, and we can collect the data. But now, because he's a scientist, we can restore it. And it's operational again, and we can get back up and store the experiment, and then board. And now I think we're ready to go, and I keep pressing T by default. So, yeah, hopefully this little flea gets us off the launch pad. It should do. In 3, 2, 1, launch. Oh, easy. Easy peasy. And first we're going to pitch over a bit, because we want to land in the water at the end of this. And we're also about to ditch this on the launch pad. And explode it in the meantime. So we're going to throttle down a bit. So now we have a throttleable engine, which is rather nice. And we're going to go for the high altitude science here, which is above 18 kilometers. Kerbin's atmosphere is from 0 to 70 kilometers, I think. And we're going to try and go up to 18 kilometers, which is from flying at, or low altitude, to high altitude. And we should have the fuel for it. You can see this little parachute icon on the left is gone red, and that means it's unsafe to deploy right now, and I've made the mistake of not paying attention to that before, which is rather embarrassing, because you find yourself falling back to the ground without a parachute. Now, it looks like we're already about to get up nice and high. What is our apoapс? Let me check. 22 kilometers. That's actually enough. I'm going to kill the engine there. Probably didn't need this much fuel, to be honest. I've only used just over half of it. Could have gotten away with just 3 of these, really. But we're going to wait till we get above 18 kilometers. There we go. Observe the materials bay again. And now we get material study from Kerbin's upper atmosphere. Look at that! 22 science just for that. 4 for the crew report. Nice. Now, we can't do an EVA up here because, for a start, Bob would get dragged away from the rocket. And second of all, he can't actually do that until we upgrade the astronaut complex. But, look, there's the KSC down there. Looking all beautiful in its beauty, I suppose. The early game. So much fun. So much fun. Right, while we still have control up here, I'm going to try and point this thing retrograde, which is, if you don't know the terms, prograde is the direction you're going, retrograde is the opposite. So that's the marker there. I'm just trying to follow that marker without being flipped over by the aerodynamic forces of these fins. And I'm going to try and do a little bit of a powered descent at this high up. There's no real reason for that, other than the fact that I still have fuel in this. And I might as well use it while I still have control over the rocket. So you see, I can't actually hold position, but I can still use WASD. WASD to control it a little bit. We are coming down pretty fast now. I think parachute safe speed is under about 260 meters per second. So it would not be a good idea to deploy right now. Just going to keep control of this. Just going to open the aerodynamic forces so I can see how much drag we're producing. Red vectors there are drag, blue vectors are lift, and you can see them wiggling around a bit. There's our drag vector. This is getting a little bit hard to control. Alright, going to throttle up a bit more. Slow us down. Come on, try and drop our speed. Parachute's now safe to deploy. I'm going to get down to just about 220 maybe. Kill and stage, and now we're going to flip over and we're going to deploy the parachute. Nice. Nice and tidy. Nice and tidy. Whoop. Can't flip over because there's aerodynamic in that direction. Aerodynamics are quite interesting. You learn an awful lot from this game, which I quite like. Okay, we'll just let this thing descend until the parachute opens. Oh, there goes the rest of it. Look at that beautiful splash. Whoosh. Nice. And we are returning to the surface. 200 meters up. Let's time warp the rest of the way. Let's do the time warp again. Oh, that has been sung so many times in the course of my life playing this game. Should be alright here. Yep, about 5.5 meters per second, so hopefully we're not going to fall, not going to explode the science bay. There we go. And flop over backwards. Awesome. Now we can actually get Bob out again, and we can even do more science while we're here. So we can get an EVA report from while flying above the water. We can take the data out of there and store it again. We can back up here and try and get the data out of there. Restore that, and then we can observe it again, and we can get materials study from Kerbin's water. Yeah! And we can store that, and we can board, and then we can do another crew report. Crew report from Kerbin's water. 2 more science. My oh my, that's a lot of science. Recover. And let's see how much science we are getting for this. 64 now. 52.9 science. Oh, hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, look at all the science that we get. And you see what I mean about the materials study. I mean, crew report 2 science, crew report 4.5, materials study 7.5, and 22.5 science. That is why we have it. Right. Whole lot of money from recovered parts, and another XP gained, this time by Bob. Awesome. And we are well on our way to breaking the bounds of the atmospheric shield of this planet. I don't know if that means anything. Hey look, we got more milestones! Land distance and altitude records. Ah, lovely. And splashed into the ocean and returned to the surface. Wonderful. Right. I think I will call that here for this first episode, but until next time, in which we will probably try and push for breaking the atmosphere, or at least just more high altitude stuff, getting more money, getting more science, and eventually putting something into orbit. Let's go and get the next bits of science. You and you, yes. And we'll take a bit more to get like the plane parts and more science experiments, structural parts and so forth. But yeah, we'll do that all next time, and until then, I've been Axel MC131, and this has been the Kerbal Space Program. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Where was I when the rockets came to life?